And indeed, Anish Shroff is our guest today, talking some lax. We'll have the call of the ACC tournament coming up this Friday and Sunday from down in Charlotte. Q's taking on Duke and Virginia and Notre Dame are the games on Friday night. And man, Anish, this could easily be the Final Four. It feels like when we get there in about a month from now. This is kind of back to where things have been right over the last decade with the ACC ruling the world right now.
You nailed it. Somebody was asking me the other day. They said, there's nothing at stake, right? There's no automatic qualifier, so what are we watching here? And I said, well, what you're watching is maybe the closest thing we'll have to a dress rehearsal for championship weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it easily could be, right? You look at all of these teams, and I'd say Final Four at minimum is a goal. And you bring up the point, right? Like, this is 4-0. It's not really going to affect seeding, maybe more than a line or two, depending on what happens. All these teams are in the tournament. All these teams kind of know what they are at this point. What is the benefit, I guess, for teams, going all out for this tournament this weekend?
Well, there's a couple things. One, I do think when you look at the four teams involved, the winner of this tournament might have a very, very real shot at the number one seed. And when you look historically, the difference between being a 1 versus even a 2 is staggering. So, for example, since they expanded the tournament in 2003, we've had 20 NCAA tournaments. The 1 seed has made it to championship weekend 19 out of 20 times. The 2 seed, 10 out of 20. That's a staggering difference. A 1 seed has never lost in the first round. A 2 seed has lost 5 times in round 1. It's happened twice to Syracuse. But beyond that, look, I look at Notre Dame. I do think there's a chance, win or lose on Friday, Notre Dame ends up being the number 1 seed. I think if they win 1, they lock in the number 1. They've been the best team in the country really since the middle of last season. They've just been consistent. The Kavanaughs, we know what they are. Faison has added a different element to their midfield. They're so good on the back end. They've got the best goalie in the country. They're great in the middle of the field. To me, they're playing the best of anybody. I think nationally, they're playing the best of anybody in the ACC. And can somebody knock Notre Dame off its perch right now? I look at Duke. Duke had the 1 win against Virginia where you thought, okay, this is the Goliath we've been waiting on. And then I was there Saturday in Chapel Hill, and I'm still not sure what I saw or how that happened. Duke needs to figure out a way to get right. There's something that just doesn't make sense. That team, I think, is more talented than any team in the country, and yet they've lost in some games to Penn and Syracuse, and a couple of these games, North Carolina just no showing, which doesn't make sense. Virginia is limping in on a 3-game losing streak. Their defense in 2 of those games gave up 18 goals. They got to figure out their defense before their NCAA tournament. So there's things to clean up for Virginia. And for Syracuse, we said at the beginning of the season, is this the year that Syracuse is back? Well, here we are. It's almost May. You look at the poll, they're number 3 in the country. To me, this is a chance to make a real statement that not only is Syracuse back as a team that can get to championship weekend, but if they're the last team standing at the end of this coming weekend, they're going to have a shot at a 1 or a 2 seed. And again, maybe then up the ante and say, okay, is Syracuse championship weekend good or championship good? It's a chance for a program that has not had the success on the big stage like a Notre Dame, a Duke, a Virginia to really make an emphatic statement and say, we are back, and we're back in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the Orange here, and this year, Notre Dame really is the only game that they didn't have a legit chance to win in the last seconds of the game. You look at all their losses this year.
And they played Notre Dame closer than any other team in the ACC and more competitive, despite having a face-off man who was battling an illness.
Yeah, I mean, that was a game they got jumped early, and they made that a legit, it was a 1-goal game late in the third quarter before the Irish stretched it out a little bit again late. But I look at this Virginia game that was in the Dome a couple weeks ago now, Anish, and I know the Orange have been, they've been there, they've had some wins. The Duke game was intriguing. The Cornell loss was like, man, how did that one get away? That Virginia game told me a lot of like, okay, maybe this team does have a little of the something right that you need to win a title, of the understanding of how to maneuver late in close games.
Yeah, I've talked now with all the other teams from the ACC, and they all said Syracuse is the hardest to prep for defensively because of the way Syracuse moves the ball on offense. And you take a guy like Spolina, I think we all wanted to make him the second coming of Mike Powell and Casey Powell and Marichek and Lockwood. I think there's a realization he's not that guy. He has a chance to be a very good player, but when he plays within the flow of the offense and when the ball moves, the through passes that they make, Owen Hiltz is so good at that. The way that midfield has come on, guys like Leo and Roa, Finn Thompson, to me, their top six plays together better than maybe any top six in the country, and that is their true strength. Where sometimes you watch these teams and it becomes just, okay, individually, it's this guy, it's winning matchups. Not that Syracuse doesn't have guys who can do that. I just think their top six as a unit, there's a cohesion and a chemistry that I don't think there's another team in the country that can match that.
Yeah, I mean, when their offense is humming, it's better than anyone's in the country. It's certainly more it looks better anyway, right? It pleases the eye in a way that others don't. But I guess that maybe the worry with Syracuse is come tournament time. You know how it is. You get down to these, late shot clock possessions. Sometimes you need to beat your guy. Could that be
right.
one of the things that holds them back here down the line?
Well, again, yeah, and I think when you go up against the big boys in the ACC, right? I mean, I know they beat Duke, but can you find a guy that can beat Kenny Brower one-on-one? Can you find a guy that can beat Cole Kastner one-on-one? Where Virginia really struggled, Syracuse made them play off ball, and I just thought Virginia's off-ball defense was horrendous. We know Virginia can guard straight up as well as anybody with Jurassic Park back there. But yeah, I think late in the game, who's the guy that you can throw it to and you feel confident that he can make a play? We know Duke has a guy. We know Virginia's got a couple of guys. We know Notre Dame's got a couple of guys. With Syracuse, again, it's more cohesive. It's more we than me. But again, the loss to Maryland by a goal in overtime. They were right there with Army, lost by a goal in overtime. Cornell was a game where I thought they took at the time a big step backwards. A lot of immaturity, a lot of dumb mistakes. That was a game that, frankly, should not have been as close, let alone a loss when you're up, 6-7-0. So, yeah. Do they have that guy? No. But I think, again, as a unit, that's where they're going to succeed. They're going to beat you with 6, not with 1.
Anish Shroff with us. Notre Dame, obviously, they have those two guys, and they both have the same last name, is how it rolls there with the Irish. And, Anish, we talked about it for, a decade, 15 years. It felt like, the thing holding Notre Dame back is they just couldn't figure it out at the big moments of the biggest games. The fact that they figured it out last year, how freeing do you think that is for this Irish team? Because it feels like that is one of the major factors that's making them the clear number one in the country to me right now.
You know what it reminds me of? Remember in football, Clemson's ascent, where forever Clemson was the program that stubbed its toe in a big game. They couldn't get over that hump, and then once they did, not only did they stop Clemsoning, but they became a big game program. Mm-hmm. And it was the team that showed up and won in big games, and sometimes it's just breaking through. Really, Brian, I think if you look at Notre Dame, you have to look at 2022. We all know they were robbed. They were the number 4 team in the country. You cover this sport, and you've covered it as long as anybody I know. I had Notre Dame, I think, from an eye test standpoint, as the second best team in the country going into the tournament.
Same thing. I thought they were the only other team that could have won the title that year, and they weren't in the tournament.
And they didn't even get that chance. So we're potentially looking at a team. I don't know if they beat Maryland. Could they have given Maryland a game? Yeah, I absolutely believe that. But we're looking at a team that potentially could have played for a championship 2 years ago had they gotten that chance, won a championship last year, and right now they're the overwhelming favorite to repeat. We're talking about a team that's something like 28-3 or 29-3 in their last 30-something games. They're winning these games. I mean, the one loss was kind of a fluky game against Georgetown early, and since then, they've beaten the brains off of the rest of the ACC, which has 2, maybe 3 other championship weekend contenders in the league. So, Brian, I look at this team, and dynasty is a word that we throw around maybe a little bit too much, but They win a second championship here, and I think you got to give 2022 the proper context. It's one of the best 3-year runs we've seen in a while in the sport.
Yeah, if they finish it off this year, absolutely. Absolutely. As we got Anish Shroff with us. So that's the ACC, and all 4 of these teams are going to, they're going to hit March or May, rather, thinking they got a chance to win this thing. Who else? Hopkins is number 2 right now. Are they the leader for you of the non-ACC teams, or who else has caught your eye so far?
They have to be. They have to be. And, Hopkins, they're similar to Syracuse in a lot of ways, with the one difference. I think Matt Collison is a guy who can be that dude late in games, and he's done that. He's had a couple of big game winners in Big Ten play. He's a guy that you can give the ball that can get his own, but Angeles, Degnan, Collison, Dylan Bauer's a guy who can come and invert. He gives you a little speed and shake. They have, again, a lot of weapons. They might be the deepest team that we've seen in college lacrosse this season. It's insane how much depth they have. Now, I don't love their depth in the middle of the field. I think with their rope unit, with their D-middies, some of the more athletic teams, i.e. the ACC teams, might be able to get them. But offensively, they're legitimately 9 or 10 deep with their offensive midfield. They've got 4 or 5 guys they can play on attack. This is a really good Hopkins team. If we're talking that this is the best Syracuse team we've seen since probably 2017, this is probably the best Hopkins team we've seen probably, going back to a decade. I think 2015 was the last time they made championship weekend. So this is a really, really good Hopkins team. I don't know if they're championship good. They are championship weekend good. If I were to handicap it, the other team I would have to throw in there is Cornell, because they can score on anybody. And we saw what they did to Syracuse coming back. We saw what they did to Notre Dame, almost beating them in Long Island. I just worry about their defense, and I worry about their net minding. But Cornell offensively can score with anybody. And C.J. Kirst may be the singular most important player to his team than any other player in the country. He means more to Cornell and what they do than Brennan O'Neill to Duke and Connor Schellenberger and even Kavanaugh to Notre Dame, because he just doesn't have the same supporting cast. Beyond those 2, it's a big if, but if Army can get in, Army's going to be dangerous, especially if they can figure out their goaltending. They had a great goalie last year in Knox. He's moved on. If they can figure out a way to just be average in goal with the weapons they have, and they have maybe the best starting midfield and maybe the best midfielder in Plunkett nationally, Army's a team that's going to be dangerous, and we know what they have with Coletti at the faceoff X.
Yeah, Army's had a weird last month, very weird last month. That's for sure. You mentioned all those guys, Kirst, all the stud attackmen in the ACC. So I want to get this thought: who in your mind, Anish, right now is the best player in the country this year, and is that the same person, I guess, who would be the Tuarton favorite? Because we know that's not always the same thing. Who do you got as the best guy out there this year?
Honestly, I would go with C.J. Kirst at Cornell. I just think from a consistency standpoint, what he's done in games against Syracuse and games against Notre Dame, to me, he's been the best player. He's been the most consistent, and to me, he is the Tuarton favorite. Matt Brandau's had a great season at Yale. Again, he has inflated some of those numbers against lesser competition, and I've seen too many games in the past where better defenders have taken Brandau away. Gavin Adler comes to mind from Cornell. But the great thing about the Tuarton is it's decided largely by what you do in the month of May. And if Brandau has some big games against a Kenny Brower or a Cole Kastner, or, some of these big-time defenders, A.J. Pilot at Army. Well, we start rethinking his case, and he moves up that list, and he certainly has the numbers to win the Tuarton. Brennan O'Neill's the most talented player, but, Brian, he's just disappeared in too many big games for me.
Yeah, which is crazy after what he did last year when he stepped up so many times down the stretch in that tournament, dragging kind of Duke to the title game last year. So interesting to see how different it's been for Duke this year for sure. All right, Anish, great stuff. It will be May when these conference tournaments get going on Friday. That time of the year, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, Brian, I'm going to say this real quick, man. You and I have known each other for a long time. You are one of the great voices in the sport of lacrosse. We need more of you. You combine institutional knowledge, you combine a knowledge of the game, the rules. We need you out there, man. We need you out there calling games. Your voice is missed. I put you at the very top, man, when it comes to people who know this game, who love this game, who have passion for it, and can call it at a really high level. So hopefully, man, I would love to see you out there, man.
Well, Anish, I appreciate that, and I know I will be watching you because we'll have the game on TV on Friday. But appreciate the words, my friend, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. There he is, Anish Shroff. And the official ruling of this show is if guests would like to come on the show and compliment the host, we will allow it.